Hi guys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Kook Shed, my own little YouTube channel where I talk about bodyboarding, surfing, and share some tips and hopefully helpful reviews and things like that to help you have more fun in the water and get the most out of your equipment. Today we're going to have a little chat about a bodyboard. I've been neglecting the bodyboarding side of the channel lately. I've done a fair few things around surfing, so I thought I would even the score a bit and do a bodyboard review. So this board is the one I've been riding lately. I've been riding this for about the last year or so, and it is the Winchester Versa model for the Versus project. So these are really nice boards for people who like to drop knee and prone, or ride prone and mix it up drop knee, whichever you like to do. I'm a big fan of versatile boards. I like to have the ability to choose what I want to do on the wave, and these versatile shaped boards are really good for that, really handy for that. So a lot of the boards in my collection can be ridden both prone and drop knee. That's just how I like to have fun. So Dave Winchester, his boards are already pretty versatile. I've owned a few of his templates, just the stock ones, and they already ride really well, prone and drop knee. So that's worth keeping in mind if you don't want to stray away too much from a more prone oriented shape. But this one, he designed it in mind to be ridden equally as well, prone and drop knee. His normal ones, I guess they're a little bit prone oriented and with the ability to drop knee well on them, whereas I think this one he actually made a conscious effort to make this just as good either way, whichever way you choose to ride it. So basically, what's the difference between the Versa model and his normal stock shapes? Well, generally when you make a bodyboard that's drop kneeable, as well as for prone, you bring in the nose width a touch. And that's what he's done. He's narrowed down the nose a little bit. He's added a little bit of width on the tail, which is also another thing that I look for in a drop knee board, just a tail that's a bit wider than a prone shape. And his nose to wide point, the length from the nose to the widest point of the board is a little bit further down the board. So that's generally what I like in a versatile board. There are exceptions, like Paul Roach has some really interesting shapes that look nothing like this template. He has a really narrow nose, and then the wide point is still actually quite wide because he likes, is quite high because he likes to really turn off his front foot a lot more. So where his front foot is planted on the deck, that's where he uses his that's where he throws tail from a lot more than average or standard drop knee riders. That's just my opinion. So the reason that you move the wide point a bit further down is to sort of get a happy medium between where your knee is turning and where your elbow is turning. So sort of when you've got a prone board, the wide point's going to be sort of right up around your elbow, whereas with a versatile or drop knee board, they usually, most shapers will bring the wide point down a touch to meet that turning point of where your knee is on the board when you're kneeling on the board with your inside knee. So how does it go? I found it really nice board. It excels in tubes. It seems to be a really nice tube riding board actually. It's still the same width as his normal boards. It hasn't changed. He hasn't changed the width too much. So they're quite narrow compared to the older boards, and I think that might help with the tube riding. But I found it really loves the tubes, this board. Don't we all? Spinning, things like that, rolls, the air tricks, does everything that it should out of the box. I'm no shredder, but yeah, it does everything that I ask it to do with no problems. Like if you've seen Dave Winchester ride, you know that he shreds, and this board's quite capable of keeping up with whatever he chooses to do, prone or drop knee. The rails, so I've talked about this before. So with bodyboard rails, you've got the main rail here that's in contact with the water the most. It meets the slick and the chine. You've got this top part that meets the top of the rail and goes to the deck. So he has used 55% rail and 45% chine. Now I've found that is, for me, that is the best combination for rail ratios. So the older boards had like 60% rail and 40% chine. Then for a while I saw a lot of boards that were coming out 50-50. So 50% rail, 50% chine. As a general rule, I've found that 50-50 is really good for smaller waves, and 60-40 seems to be better for larger waves. So having a 55 rail and a 45 chine just seems to really hit that sweet spot, and is a really versatile rail setup for most conditions. So you've got the roll. These days I've noticed a lot of bodyboards, they roll the deck straight down to the tail. There used to be tail pieces on nearly all bodyboards. There used to be an extra piece of foam that they'd put there, usually the same colour as the rail, so there'd be a black tail piece or what have you. I still like those just because they're a pretty old school sort of thing, but these are actually better because they eliminate that seam where the deck meets the tail, and it's just another point where water can come in, or the tail piece could delaminate, things like that. And they even actually, it sort of creates a bit more of an edge too, I think. Whereas this rolled deck method, it's quite good. You can slide up and down the board easily, and just seems to be the way shapers are going, because it works. You've still got your hand grips, hand bulbs here, and they really are handy. You know, I used to prefer my boards like old school without these hand grips, and you know, I used to think, oh, you don't need them, but then a couple of times, you know, they really did help with making manoeuvres. So now I've sort of adapted to them and gotten used to them, and they're great. Yeah, like back in the day, you used to see a lot of guys having to wax that corner underneath the hands, just to make sure they've got a grip. This is before nose bulbs, but now, yeah, you don't really need to do that as much, because the bulbs just give you that little bit of hold. It's nice average channels, and by average I don't mean you know, average as in nothing special. I mean average as in not too extreme and not too shallow, or you know, not too ineffectual. Yeah, they seem to just have a nice balance. They're predictable, they feel good to ride, they allow just a little bit of tracking on the wave. They sort of act like an inside-out surfboard fin, so by the water rushing through them, it actually adds that little bit of hold. And like I said, it's a really nice tube rider, and I think that the channels help with that as well. So construction wise, you've got a Polypro core. So Polypros these days, it's the standard sort of core for a bodyboard. You can get different densities. The higher the density, the stiffer the board. So this is a 1.9, which is pretty much the most dense Polypro. And then you can go right down to like 1.2, which people call that like I've seen it called the D12 and things like that. And it's just got a bit more give. But if you want a board to last, yeah, usually 1.9 is the way to go. 1.9 PCF, I think it's called, the density, and it lasts well in warmer water, and it also helps the board just last longer in general. It's also got a stringer, single stringer. He hasn't added 2 stringers because it was aimed to drop knee more, which I think is okay, because 2 stringers does add a bit more weight. You can definitely feel the difference between a double stringer board or a single stringer board. So he's just kept it to 1, and he's got some mesh underneath between the slick. You can see the reflections there, I hope. There's the dimples there. So the mesh is between the slick and the core. Now I think that personally is the best place to put mesh if you're just using one layer of it, because it seems to help the slick, which is Surlyn by the way, which is the #1 choice, top-notch slick for performance bodyboarding. It seems to help the slick maintain its projection. It minimises the creasing risk. It just works really well. And look, this could just be a theory, but where the slick is laid down onto the mesh, these little pockets, you can see the little pockets there. I think that somehow adds to the projection. Maybe underneath the slick, maybe there's, like, I don't know, a springiness because of that, the mesh being there. But I think it adds to the projection of the already superior bottom skin, which is the Surlyn, which is the same plastic they use on golf ball, the outer shell of golf balls, because they found that when golf balls were covered with this material, they flew further when they were hit by the club. So taking that knowledge, the bodyboarding manufacturers, Mori, Boogie, back in the day, were the first, I think, to use it. They used that principle and applied it to the slick, figuring that when you hit the lip, that impact on the board or on the slick would project the board a bit further. I don't know whether that's a marketing ploy or anything, but it seems to work. It seems to work much better than most of the other bottom skin options out there. Yeah, so we have double rails as well, which means you've got two layers of foam here on your rail, the black part. So there's 2 black pieces there. Seems to be just the standard these days. Back in the day they'd just have 1 sometimes, and they just found that by adding an extra layer of foam, it just also adds to the stiffness, projection, and the longevity of the board. So basically it's nothing crazy, the design. It's just a nice shape. They haven't gone too futuristic. You know, I've had a couple of Winchester boards that are quite, you know, they've got the quad channels and things like that, and the points, the different points on the tails, and he's quite into, you know, exploring different methods of shaping boards, or different templates and things like that, I should say. Whereas this is just a nice all-round drop knee and prone board, which I think ticks all the boxes for me. Now, some people, I've talked to a few mates, and some of them have ridden them, and I'm not dissing the board at all, but they've said, oh, it kind of takes a while to get used to. It draws different lines than maybe what they're used to, but that's entirely like a personal choice, I guess. I've found that it's quite user friendly. Now that could be because of the board they've come from before riding this. Maybe it's a totally different shape, but I didn't find that it took that much getting used to at all. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents, and I've just found it to be a really effective, fun board. Now, I don't know, I've heard people go, oh, show us some footage of you riding the boards you're doing the reviews on, or you know, sometimes people want to see what the board goes like or anything like that, or stuff like that. I've got one photo. The very first time I rode this board, there just happened to be a photog out in the water, and he got a shot of me. It was a nice little pocket. This board handled it really well, a lot of speed, like especially brand new, very stiff. and it handled it well, took off behind the peak, backdoored the section and just came screaming through. So here's the shot. And yeah, so a lot of fun. It can handle nearly anything you throw at it. It seems to really like tubes. Turns well, all the air tricks, roll tricks, all that sort of thing. I don't think you're going to be too disappointed. Sizing wise, this is a 42, which seems to be around my size. I wish they had like increments. I wish there was like a 42.5, because I would have gone that. Because if you're drop kneeing, if you're using the board for drop kneeing, chances are you're probably not going to be riding it in as bigger waves as you would prone on. So when you're riding waves that are a little bit smaller, you can go up in size to help with flotation and speed through less powerful sections. So I would have liked to have gone up to a 42.5. They didn't have that option. It was like 41, 42 and 43 inch. So that's one thing. If you're going to ride it in bigger waves, stay around your normal size, or even drop down one if that's your thing. But if you're going to be sort of using it more for drop knee, maybe think about looking at the next size up. I'm happy with this one because 42, covers pretty much all waves that I use the board in. But that's just something to keep in mind if you're curious about sizing. You should know by now with the sizing of your board. If you don't know what your size is, like I said, I know mine's about 42. Yeah, just stand the board on the ground in front of you, and the nose of the board should come within an inch or two of your belly button. That's as a rough guide. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I thought I'd do a review and help you guys out if you're looking at one of these boards. They've got them in different colours and things like that, so check them out either in your local bodyboard shop or online at all the good quality bodyboard retailers. Yeah, I just thought I'd balance the scales a bit with a bodyboard oriented review, because yeah, I've sort of been leaning more towards surfing stuff on the channel lately, and I know that the boogers are diehard and they love talking about bodyboards and anything about bodyboarding. So yeah, this one's for you. My mate Marty was bugging me about doing one on a bodyboard, so here you go, mate. Done. Thanks for dropping in, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you want to see more stuff like this in future, yeah, just subscribe to the channel. If it was helpful, yeah, just click like so I know. And if you didn't like it, if you hated it, well, go check out another video or go for a surf. Okay, thanks for dropping in. See you next time here on Kook Shed. Catch ya.